If you told me that the greatest celebrity, most influential person on the right would be the guy who makes electric cars, who wants to put a microchip in everyone's head, and who I saw one report doesn't have sex with women but impregnates them through IVF and invest very little in his children, is a sort of R strategist of a kind, I guess you could say. And that this man would be lionized, lauded, etc., by American conservatives. I guess at first glance, when at first hearing, I would say, you've lost your mind. Of course, they would hate someone like this. Isn't he, in a way, the the fantasy of Bill Gates or something? Like, what do you make of just that fact that the right loves this man and seems to forgive him or at least look the other way? And then I guess we could also talk a little bit more about the reproductive strategy he's pursuing. But what do you think of these things?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's stunning, but at the same time, I predicted it. I predicted seeing Elon's behavior in January 2024. I said something happened. It's not money. It's not political links. Elon has a Jewish baby. And it turned out that Ashley Sinclair was the bearer. And I've published this video.
Oh,
It made 500,000 impressions on X. So
I
people
saw
saw
you
this.
talk. So, okay, let's go back just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about here. So, Elon was in a lot of trouble. I remember doing a podcast, and I'm not trying to one up you here with predictions, but I remember doing a kind of spontaneous monologue where I said, so, and this was before he went to Auschwitz, and I said something is going on where he wants to be the big kahuna. He wants to be the most influential man on earth. And he is dropping conspiracy theories about Nancy Pelosi's husband. He is he when someone said, the Jews basically had it coming because they've been promoting multiculturalism for all this time, and these are the fruits. And he said 100% correct. I just said there's something has happened, and he wants to be president. In fact, he's learned from Trump, which is that conventional politics are over. You don't need endorsements from the local mayor or the governor of Iowa. You don't necessarily even need to go on Fox News, although he would do that at some points. You can be a kind of candidate from the internet, where much like Ron Paul was, but Ron Paul got 5% of the vote at most. You can actually win as the candidate from the internet. You are the fact that the establishment hates you is good. You can show that the governor of Iowa endorsed someone else as proof that they're part of the satanic cabal, or they're, the deep state or the swamp or whatever. And you can just run this alternative campaign. Now, Elon Musk was not born in the United States, although he also does not seem to follow laws. So I'm actually think he might want to be president, and it sort of looks like he is president. But anyway, to go back to what you were saying, just to set it up so everyone knows what we're talking about. So Elon Musk was saying things that were critical of Zionism, anti-Zionist maybe, anti-Semitic perhaps. The aforementioned tweet where he said that's 100% correct. The Jews have it coming in a way by supporting
Yes.
multiculturalism, the left. He then said something that was much more, reasoned and sort of mainstream, but it was actually a little. It was critical of Israel, and it was kind of radical on the edges. He said, you can kill one or two Hamas leaders. You're going to create 100 more, and it's a cost benefit. You keep attacking them. and like snakes out of the head of Medusa, all of these new young highly motivated, maybe more violent Muslims are going to rise up. And so you have to think about it that way. That was not what Israel wanted to hear. And then shortly after these things, he also went on a space with a bunch of rabbis who were sort of lecturing him, and he was pushing back. He was in a conference and he said, "Go fuck yourself. You're going to try to bribe me with money?" That was pretty bold and maybe a little bit disingenuous. I think he does want their money for advertising on X, but regardless. And then he went to Auschwitz, and then he talked with Ben Shapiro, and then he's getting grace from the ADL. The ADL. It's time for grace. That's what they said. We need to start forgiving more people as opposed to condemning them. Is this man anti-Semitic? Who can say for sure? I mean, basically, the thing you would never imagine them conceivably doing, they did. And
Yes.
so now you predicted that something happened, and you predicted that he had a Jewish child. Wow.
Yes, I predicted that there was a woman walking around, a Jewish woman with a child from Elon, and it was on the month where he inseminated Ashley St. Clair on
Wow.
January 2024. Now, what had triggered that prediction was that in all this kind of tour of apology and Auschwitz visit,
Hmm.
he had said something to make the case that he shouldn't be called anti-Semitic. And he had said, "I've always considered myself, on Team Jew." And
Yeah.
it's like he was about to say, "I've always considered myself Jewish," but he said on Team Jew. And on Team Jew, to me, that was talking to a couple, that was talking to a romance he was currently in. So what we learn is that this is all tied to the Babylon Bee, by the way.
Yeah.
Elon's irrational approach with the Babylon Bee, which is Babylon Bee got banned from Twitter for a joke on transgenders, and Elon spent $44 billion buying Twitter to unban Babylon Bee, basically. And of course, there was the whole bigger concern for free speech, but that was the presented as the most important thing that had offended Elon. Turns out Ashley St. Clair is an employee of the Babylon Bee, and when the Babylon Bee starts doing this interview in a room with Musk as he acquires Twitter, he asks for Ashley St. Clair to be transported, and this is where he sees her. He sees her the first time in May 2024, and he sees her as a journalist, and he takes her on the side. Eventually, he demands that she be transported with the Babylon Bee team from Austin to San Francisco, and he gets a romantic dinner with her. And at the same time, we have a Jewish overtake of the Jewish comedy overtake of the right, basically, because the Babylon Bee shouldn't be an orchestrator of power. It should be an outlet of Jewish comedy, really. That's what it is. But it poses as Christian. It makes jokes about abortion, makes jokes that are supposed to pull the Christian sensitivity. And yet it's an organ of Jewish power in a reformulated republicanism where the Republican Party would be the host of a form of centrism. And this is all happening at the same time as Elon Musk is getting his baby from Ashley St. Clair. It's like one of these old marriages that you had, uniting families at war or resolving conflicts between kingdoms in Europe. It's really a contractual baby that is coming from Ashley St. Clair. And it's a contract ultimately between Jews, right-wing thought, because at this point I think that what the Jews have seen is that we can't have support from the young generation, neither right nor left, but certainly not the anti-war leftist. And they were eyeing Gaza probably for a long time, and they were eyeing an expansion in the West Bank. And so they started realizing we're going to need to do the neocon thing again. And that has cut their option. We cannot get support from a young new generation with too many Muslims in it anyway, and
Yes.
the other youth are totally brainwashed, anti-war, anti-genocide, and so we're gonna go for the right, and so the right had to change. So you tell me Elon is unfit to be leader of the right. You're right, but he's still doing it because the goal is a subversion of the right. The goal is a change of what the right is. It
Hmm.
is actually a feature, not a bug, that he's not a right wing person by our standard.
It's very interesting. So Seth Dillon is the leader of the Babylon Bees, CEO or something like this. And he has actually announced I'm Irish and Ashkenazi by birth on my mother's side. I think he put that in to say, oh, look, I'm Jewish because of maternal descent and so on. But I'm Christian by faith. I actually looked into the Babylon Bee. I don't find the Babylon Bee very funny. It seems like, for instance, the Onion back in the day, there was a kind of dry, even quasi nihilistic human to nihilistic element to the Onion back in the day. Like they would have a headline like saying, man has banged his head up against a brick wall for 10 hours and yet his life still sucks. Or
Oh yeah, I laughed.
yeah, definitely. It would have, there was a sort of, you know what I'm talking about, a certain American Midwestern vibe to it. About how life kind of sucks and is boring, and these silly opinions from men on the street and so on. I always liked The Onion, and I agree that The Onion was becoming cringe, liberal, and woke, and that was not good. They were better when they were edgy. And when you're woke, you can't really be edgy, I guess, unless you're calling someone a Nazi or something, and that, how many times can you tell that joke? I find the Babylon Bee very tedious. It seems like what they do is they take like a boomer tweet and then turn that into a headline. So it's like the boomer opinion about AOC being retarded or something is like that's the origin of the story. And then the headline will be, AOC is angry because she's in fact mentally disabled and not retarded or so. The jokes just don't land, and it's very rare that I grin at a Babylon Bee thing. Now, Babylon Bee started out very interestingly, and you hear that Babylon, so it's a sort of Old Testament notion of the chosen Jewish people vis-a-vis Babylon. We're captives in Babylon, this den of iniquity and sin and et cetera. And I think they would, what I read is that early on they would make sort of self-deprecating jokes about evangelical Christians and Joel Osteen and Kirk Cameron and things like that, which I find sort of innocuous. But then they became hyper political, and I'm sure a lot of people read the Babylon Bee and don't really know that they're evangelical Christian because they're making fun of the wokesters. They got banned for like Rachel Levine, Man of the Year or something, or Woman of the Year. I forget. I don't know which is funnier, but they've done the whole 2020 through 2024. We hate the woke. They're transing the kids, etc. They did all that stuff, and it got very political, and they got banned. But as you're saying, and I'll just reiterate because I think it's important, is that George W. Bush at one point in 2007 had 20% approval rating. It was just in the dumpster. Who were those people who never left him? Who were those people? They were white evangelical Protestants in the suburbs and rural areas, and maybe some people in cities like Dallas or Houston. They never left his side. And you sort of you've got to rally the base at some point. You can't constantly reach out to new people. And I think the Babylon Bee, under the cover of humor, because it's a huge, publication. I would assume it's bigger than The Onion. Through the under the cover of humor, you can rally those people and sort of push their buttons. I guess what bothers me about the Babylon Bee is that kind of self-congratulatory tone, that The Onion never had in, say, circa 2004. The Onion would sort of make fun of Midwesterners for being like broke or poor or not getting chicks or kind of boring or like that. It's kind of funny when you're poking fun at yourself. But when you're congratulating yourself about not being, a Marxist or something, it's not funny, in my opinion. It's not
Absolutely.
it's not introspective. It's not, it anyway. But I think you're absolutely right. Like there's the personal element to Elon, but there's also a bigger element to this whole game that he's in.
Absolutely. I agree with everything there. And it's impressive that this is all happening. Ultimately, the Babylon Bee is the career of Ashley as an employee. The Babylon Bee has been censored from X. One of the biggest investments of Elon in his life is to purchase back X, Twitter, so that a joke about trends can pass. Now, what is Elon's great frustration in life? It's the fact that his own child got tranced.
Yeah.
So we're in the rotation between the old relationships of Elon and the new ones. Elon is going to war with what he calls the woke mind virus, which in my view, when he says these words, inside of him, what resonates is they took my child's dick, they cut my child's testicles. And so there he is in a kind of vengeance path from an old relationship, forming a new relationship and a new alliance. And Ashley St. Clair becomes the bearer of the fruit of this new alliance, which is, yes, we're going to make jokes against the trends. Yes, we're going to buy the platforms if we need to, because we need to fight the woke mind virus. We need to fight what led to the sterilization of my child.
This is a pointed question. Do you think that Seth Dillon quite literally whored out his employee?
Hoard
Because
out?
it sort of
What do you
seems
mean?
like that. Well, she was working at the Babylon Bee. First off, that in itself is sort of interesting because my question with Ashley St. Clair or like Isabella DeLuca or whatever, it's like, who are you? Like you, I'm sorry, I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I'll reiterate. So I was in New York City a couple of months ago. I remember eating brunch with two people who might very well be on this call. If you go eat brunch in Manhattan, you are surrounded by women who are better looking, smarter, more tasteful, which that's a low bar with Ashley Sinclair. Like she's mid. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like maybe I don't, if you're at a truck stop in Montana, maybe it's like, holy shit, this is the Venus herself. But among women, these conservative, like e-thoughts or e-girls are just kind of mid. I just have to be honest. Like you could walk down Manhattan and see in like a half an hour, see like 100 women who are better looking, more put together, and smarter than these e-girls. Like it's weird. But anyway, Ashley Sinclair is not funny. She has no sense of humor outside of like, oh, look at me, I'm so relatable. Or that's like the limit. So why is she working at a comical, satirical website? What is she adding? If not, she's just a kind of mascot or maybe something a little bit darker.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I work with the hypothesis. I don't have a proof of this, but personally,
Mhm.
my working hypothesis when I think of Ashley St. Clair, Babylon Bee, it's Mossad. It's literally just a Mossad outpost.
Right.
Uh, you'll never get to know, but clearly they've been pushing American politics in that direction, which would be absolutely favorable to Mossad more efficiently than they could have done if it was their literal mission. So that's how I approach it. Now, there's the question of how does a woman like this attract the attention of Elon Musk? Because I've studied Elon Musk's partner choice, and Elon Musk has a sense for female cognition. It's all about the structure of female cognition. He fell in love with his first wife from Ontario in Canada because he was in love with her books, and she had drive. She wanted to write books, and she felt confident in herself. Then he falls in love with Grimes, who is this out there artist, vagabond style. So extremely weird.
He's kind of the coolest
cognition.
one.
Absolutely. The coolest
Yeah.
one from a social standing perspective. Then Shivan Zilis, a CEO of Neuralink, postdoc type, super scientist, super artist. So what
And
of
sort of
these
put together. She's the classy one. You know?
she is the one who who
She
would
is the
make
most
sense as an
taste.
actual wife.
Yeah,
And
it makes the
notice
most
she
sense.
never caused problems. All of the other women have caused problems in Elon's life. She's always standing back and being happy with what she has. So
Yeah.
absolutely the model wife there. But what in Ashley Sinclair could trigger Elon's desire for cognitive diversity? I have difficulty seeing it. Other than perhaps her standing as a Babylon Bee led Elon to assume that she was of some sort of journalistic quality, or Elon has just changed his pattern and he was attracted by just her looks and he didn't care about cognition anymore. Or
Maybe
the
it
third
was-
option,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
which I will call the Kanye echo. Let's not forget that Kanye has these rhymes and he's friends with Elon. And Kanye has these rhymes where he states, "How are you going to call me anti Semitic? I just fucked a JB." And Kanye is suggesting here that you can prove that you're not anti Semitic by having sex, reproductive sex, with a Jewish woman in these rhymes. Is it possible that Elon went for this, that he says, I'll do it. If they're after me, if the advertisers are after me, I want to recalibrate my advertising. I'm going to have one more Jewish baby.
I think that makes a lot of sense. If it was a genuine attraction to something, when you see someone who's blown up like Ashley St. Clair, she has a million followers or more. You sort of wonder, okay, well, what's there? She must have some sort of intelligence, even if I can't see it, and fair enough. But that's almost like a generous interpretation of what's going on. I think your interpretation, your interpretation is probably correct. When he was out there saying, like, go fuck yourself, yes, he was being combative and aggressive, but he might have genuinely been scared. Disney, Apple, of these big companies that spend millions, they're shutting him out. And he might have said, well, I've got to go this other way this time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think Elon is influenceable. It's what fascinates me with these autistic minds of very powerful and known people. They're not fully autistically stubborn to the point of ignoring, and that's probably what leads them to their success. They have some connection with the world of humans, and Elon, Trump are always influenceable in ways that I wouldn't be.